Okay, guys, so I have a Kashtira deck profile for y'all. I went 4-0 at locals last night with this list, and I'm going to show you the deck profile, then I'll show you what I would change to make it better. So, first things first, I'm so glad that they brought this back to 3. That makes the deck, like, playable. Then we got Fenrir at 3, and that's mandatory. Riseheart at 3. I feel like that's mandatory, and I think anybody else will tell you that. Then you have 1 Ogre, 1 Scareclaw Kashtira. This one's mandatory. I'll tell you about this one after. And then 1 Tier Cash. Again, this is a really good card. And I think there's a reason why I'm considering cutting these 2, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. Okay, so now for the spells. For the in-engine spells, that is. So, let me show you something. This card right here, you want to see this card. This card just makes the deck so much better. That's why we play Terraforming with it. That's basically just 4, It's basically just 4 planets. And then we have 3 Birth, mandatory, 2 Theosis. So I do want to touch on Theosis. I think the correct way to play when you're playing all the names is to play 3. If you're not playing all the names, I think 2 is fine. So I feel like there was times where I had names in my hand but no Theosis, and I just didn't like that. 1 Prep. So the only way you play Prep is if you play Ogre, and I do think that Prep is a really good interruption. And then we have 3 Pot of Prosperity, and okay. Let me make a little room. Show you this one. But yeah, so 3 Theosis I think is correct if you're playing all the names. And I feel like that's why I had some weird hands last night. And we're playing just 1 Spellbound because I didn't have another Theosis. I wanted to play another Theosis. Couldn't find it. So I played this 1 Spellbound, and ironically, this card actually, I think it won me a game, to be honest with you. I was playing Goaty, and I just activated this so they couldn't do what they were trying to do. So, yeah. For our hand trap lineup, I do like this deck. It has an ability to play quite a few hand traps. 3 Shifter, the best hand trap in the format right now, hands down. 3 Ash. 3 Mourner. I think Mourner is better than Ash right now, honestly. Against certain decks. So then we have Ghost Bell. Ghost Bell is pretty good, and then we have Imperm. I think Imperm's probably the 2nd best hand trap overall. Dimension Shifter is the best hand trap if you can play it. If not, Imperm. And then I feel like this one is 2nd round because Ash is relatively weak if they have an extender, and then they still, if they're playing a fire deck, they're just going to take your Ash out of the graveyard and use it against you, basically. Ghost Bell is another one. It can come up. Also, if you have this and this in hand and they go to Called By it, you can Bell the Called By. So it actually has more functionality in Kashtira than other decks because you want to be able to. Let me show you the extra deck so that I can talk to you about why you play this ratio. So this is, I think it's 14 hand traps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Yeah, 14 hand traps. And I think you could bump that up if you didn't have Tier Cash and play 3 Bell. So for our extra deck, let me just talk about this one first. This is an MVP. There's times where Baron going first, you need it to prevent things like Evenly. You literally just hold it for the Evenly, like unless they put up a bunch of board, and you're like, yeah, they can't use Evenly anymore. This card is great. It's just great. If you can make it safely, make it. It's just good. SP Little Knight, I went into this like once, and I actually misplayed by going into it because I'd already used my Baron, and I left the Baron and took the Fenrir, which was really stupid. But anyway, this card just, in cash, it does not feel good. So do not think that you have to have this card if you don't have it. It does not come up that much. And when it does, it's almost like you're in a negative position. Appaloosa. I don't think I made this one time last night. This is cuttable, 100% cuttable. IP Masquerena, I had thought I would use this more than I did, but I didn't. And it's really only if you're going to go into, SP. Crystal Heart, didn't make this once. Link Spider, didn't make this once. Link Spider, didn't make this once. I'm not playing the decode line, but the more I think about it, I think it is the better play over this, just because it's there as an option. If you got just a really bad hand and you need those draws to hopefully draw into hand traps. Big Eye, I don't think I made this once. A lot of people love this card and they think it's like mandatory Kashtira. It's not. It's not. It does not come up that much anymore. Typhon. This comes up. This, I would say it won me a game, for sure. For sure won me a game. Or at least extended it until I could get something else going. So, Typhon is really good. Flare Metal. This helps you lock down games. I did make this. I think I made it once just to kind of punish my opponent for playing the game. They were down to like 1,600 life points. But, and it's just a good time card. I feel like every good deck has a time card. Shang, if you're making this every turn, you're playing Kashtira wrong. But there are times where it is your best play, but if you have Birth and Planet, like it's almost mandatory to make this because you have so many interruptions, and it forces your opponent to deal with this because it puts like a mental pressure on them too. Like it's like, oh my god, I got to deal with it. So yeah, mandatory. One's good. Mountain Smasher. This is mandatory. The more I think about it, because I go into this almost more than anything else. This is basically how you make a 4-material Zeus, and it's a card that can get big and beat over certain stuff. But yeah, it attaches after it destroys something by battle, and I made a 4-material Zeus, and yeah, I'll tell you about my matchups later, but this one won me a game, I think, because it put pressure on the board with the Zeus, and they had to deal with the Zeus, but I let them deal with the Zeus, and I almost gave it to them as bait, kind of. Dark Armed, this card's mandatory, but I don't think I made it once last night, but there are games where you make this. It will come up. Draco Sack, if you're playing I think this is a good card overall, because it can destroy cards on the field and stuff like that. It does target, but also it's how you make your link plays and your decode if you're going to play that line. And then last but not least is Zeus. Such a good card. I mean, this card, it puts an insane amount of pressure on the board when it has 4 materials. It can really just destroy Fire Kings, Snake Eyes, all that stuff. It can just really hurt them. And just any deck, when you have a 4-material Zeus, like, they have to deal with it. They have to. Like, it's not an option. You have to deal with it. So, yeah, especially if you're under Shifter or under Dimensional Fissure or something, they're losing that stuff for good. So, okay, I want to talk about my matchups. First matchup was against Heroes. That match I went 2-0 that match. Zeus won me the game, I would say. And the next one, I was playing Rika, and I think I drew Shifter like game 1. Ironically, Shifter doesn't do a whole lot against Rika. I still think it probably helped me win the game. Then game 2, like, I decided to scoop because it was to a point where maybe they couldn't OTK me, maybe they could, but they can gain so many life points. I didn't want to lose in time to some stupid deck that's just gaining life points. So I just chose to scoop and go from there. Match 3 was against Goaty. That was actually the hardest duel of the night. Like, it came down on the wire, and the MVP of that was this, and ironically this. Like, if it weren't for these 2 cards, I would have just lost, because I think I ended up making this to lock it down, because I could not draw a name. I could not draw one of the bigger names. It was like this, and I had Birth, and I could have did something earlier, like banished a different name just for follow-up, but if they dealt with the Birth, then it wouldn't have mattered. But anyways, it all worked out, and I won just with them cards right there. 2-1. So 2-0 Heroes, 2-1 Rika, 2-1 Goaty, and then the last matchup was Snake Eyes. That was probably, that match really wasn't hard. It was just a game where I didn't shifter them, and it just I went second. I think I don't think I shifted them any games. I think one time I went second, and they just couldn't. I had plenty of hand traps, so I won that one. Then the second game, pretty much just scooped because it got to a point, and I was like, yeah, they've got it. Once you try to break the board and you can't, it's just like, yeah. But anyway, I can't remember if I went first or second that first game. It don't matter. 2-1. Won the last game. I went first. I had dimensional fissure up. I had one in hand, and then I activated one. I decided to activate both just in case I had a cosmic cyclone, and it worked out. Because it turns off a lot of their plays, and it was kind of a grindy game still, and it just got to a point where, like, if you don't do something here, you get no TK'd. So, yeah. Kashtira, still a good deck. But, what I would change. Let's go to what I would change. Keep this, keep this, keep this, keep this, keep this, keep this, keep this. Okay. Here's your options. This could honestly be anything. This right here. These 7 cards could literally be anything. Most people are going to tell you play the decode line, and I think that's not incorrect. It's just it plays into Nibiru when you don't have to. And if you draw all your Kashtira stuff, that's always the stronger play. Because the issue with the decode line is, like, if you're under shifter, which is your strongest play with Kashtira, just oddly enough, that is your strongest play. You can't even do the decode line. So then you got 6 cards in your deck, in your extra deck, that are basically dead. Big Eye, like I said, it's good. It comes up once in a blue moon, but I just don't remember the last time it actually won me a game. Because there's so many times where you're, like, locked into the 7s and locked into XZs. So I don't know. The only issue with not playing the decode line is the only other stuff that you could really add in your extra deck are, like, you could go Harmonizer, but you could, like, cut SP for the Harmonizer, which does come up. So IP, or you could cut the Apo, or you could just cut this for the decode and just have all this, because you can go decode, then go into Apo, a 2-material Apo, like, worst case. Hopefully draw a couple hand traps, go IP, make SP on their turn. But at the end of the day, like I've heard somebody say, there's really nothing better that you can play other than the decode stuff. I know it's situational, but so even if you play that, you would just have to cut one of these. I'd probably cut this, and then you could add the decode. This will be decode, and yeah, that'd be your deck. So yeah, as far as changes, yeah, I would probably just take this IP out and make it a decode, just because it's an option to go into, but I don't even know if I would have used it last night. That's the weird thing. And I've tried it before, and I never go into it because it plays in a nib so hard. And you can only do it with birth. It's so situational, it just sucks. So if you have Unicorn, you would go Unicorn, effect, birth. If you got birth, then you could go ahead and, if you had another way to get another name, that's another thing. You have to have another name. It's such a strange card. I feel like in those cases, you would rather go into Baron. So Tier Cash, let's talk about Tier Cash and Ogre. So Tier Cash and Ogre, they're kind of weird because usually to get these out, you end up having to play in a nib a good bit. And it's kind of risky. You're risking it for the biscuit. Unless you, with Ogre, sometimes you can go Ogre if you're not planning to make Shang. If you don't have the field spell up, very rarely do you need to make Shang. It just doesn't make sense. Unless, like, it's like your last resort just to get an extra body. So, but you would go, if you're under shifter, you would typically search this. Like say you have shifter but you don't have planet, you would go into tier cache. You'd end with 4 bodies on board. And if you really want to risk it for the biscuit, you can go for that 5th summon and just get rid of this and the Rise Heart. It's all situational, but under shifter you can end up banishing 6 of their cards with this and Rise Heart. 3 face down, 3 face up, and that can be really good. Or you could go for Ogre, have prep, and just have 4 bodies on the board, and that's a very strong play because they're playing under shifter, but you only go for that under shifter. They're under shifter. There's 4 bodies up. If they get rid of 1, you can just prep it back because they're forced to deal with the Fenrir and the Unicorn, especially in this time, or the Ogre because the Ogre is very effective because you get to pick what you banish basically. So yeah, I mean it's cuttable, but at the end of the day, the only issue with this one is it has a cost to get it out. You have to banish something from your hand or graveyard, a Kashtira card. Does it say that? Yeah, or tier limits. But it like I said, it comes up, and I just think the correct way to play is with 3 Theosis if you're playing all the names, and that's probably why I didn't really like it. So I'm gonna try it again, and I'll let y'all know. So anyways, before this video ends up taking 5 hours, we'll see y'all in the next one. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe.